Hey Facebook, Tony Keith here, the digital content manager and 11 News at 9 anchor at KKTV 11 News. And we are talking Broncos. Why? Because Coach Payton held a news conference yesterday. We've got the combine, the upcoming draft, and all the talk on the national level and in Colorado is about Russell Wilson. So I'll be honest, many of you know if you watch our Facebook Lives or watch our newscasts a lot, I am no expert. That's why I'm bringing in the expert in our newsroom outside of our sports team, of course. We've got our producer, Caleb, a lifelong Broncos fan. So I always like to kind of start with a heads up. We are Broncos fans, so this is a little biased, when we are talking about the future of the Broncos, the expectations. But Caleb, I'm going to bring you in real fast. Let's talk about that news conference yesterday. Let's start with that. Coach Payton got in front of the media, answered some questions. What was your takeaway from that news conference?
It was a super prolonged way of basically saying Russell Wilson's not going to be our quarterback next year. Not a whole lot went into what their strategy is. It did basically come out that the plan looks to be to move off of Russ and to explore other options with the quarterback spot, which has been on everyone's mind, like you said. So it's nice to have some clarity there. It's just now like, what are they going to do with the spot?
We did get a timeline on this. So Payton came out and he said within 2 weeks. Some key things to point out. He's meeting with ownership next Tuesday and Wednesday. If you had a guess speculating, best guess is essentially he's going to ownership and he's going to say, look, this is our plan if we release Wilson. And that's another part of this. There's not a lot of interest from other teams, at least it doesn't feel like it, to trade or go after Wilson. So it's likely going to be releasing Wilson. When do you think a decision's going to come?
It's going to come before the draft. I think quite soon. Truthfully, I don't think we'll get to that 2 weeks before it does come out that the Broncos plan on releasing Wilson. They just need to figure out, what their plan is at that spot. It's the most important position. So getting the plan rolling, figuring out what the plan is has been the priority this offseason. I don't think they'll waste any time, especially if they can find someone they like in the draft or somewhere else and they, keen in on going after them. That could be when they especially make that decision quick of move off Russ, let's go for this guy.
So let's talk about because it's leaning towards that, moving away from Russ. Now all eyes are on the draft. The Broncos, they've got the 12th pick. And I got to mention, we're on Facebook Live. If you want to join the conversation, feel free to throw your comments in right now. Or if you're watching the replay of this, comment ahead. We might do another one of these here pretty soon ahead of the draft. But number 12 pick, so much talk. Me personally, I'm going to say J.J. McCarthy. That's the simple, easy. Are the Broncos, if we need to fix the quarterback position, who's that going to be? If you're looking at the 12th pick, I'm going McCarthy. What do you think the Broncos are going to do with that 12th pick?
I'm a little biased. If we could jump up and draft Caleb, I hear he's a good representation for all of us other Calebs. It would be cool to see him in a Bronco jersey. Don't think it's going to happen. It's going to take trading Surtain and a bunch of first-round picks to do it. I just think we don't have the capital. J.J. McCarthy is also a really good name. Balled out during the championship game and during all last season, was an absolute stud for Michigan. I like JJ there. I think that makes a lot of sense. I could see Denver trading back. Maybe just a couple of spots to see if they can pick up a couple more draft picks, but both Sean Payton and George Payton have mentioned they like having a lot of darts to throw at the board. So adding more darts makes a lot of sense, especially when you just don't have the quarterback position to worry about. You have a couple other positions that are on their mind as getting better.
Our chief photographer jumping in on the conversation, Mike Petcash, saying wide receivers. Anybody who, we've got a lot of Russ fans out there. He hasn't been released yet. There's always that small chance, who knows, through negotiations, we could have Russ. He's saying wide receivers. So all those Wilson fans out there who are hoping we hold on to Wilson, they're like, you don't need to fix Russ, you need to fix his receivers. Like you said, listening to that news conference, I don't think either Payton plans on holding on to Wilson.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of who's at fault. That's a big debate that could spark on our Facebook page. Outside of the quarterback position, what you were talking about, we've got Petcash talking wide receivers. Looking ahead, this draft and the upcoming season, what's the feeling from you as a Broncos fan? I mean, can we compete with the Chiefs next season?
It's hard to say, you know, how much this team is going to look different. This team could look vastly different than it did this year, or it could look almost exactly the same. We're way over the cap space, not as much as we were before that help from the league just a couple days ago, but we're still over, so we're definitely going to have to cut and trade some players. Some players are up for extensions. We've talked a little bit about Cushenberry, the center, what they could do with him. Cortland Sutton and Justin Simmons are both coming up on their final years of their contract, so they could get extensions, which would clear up some cap space, but it's really hard to say what this team is going to look like this year. If they can bring in a new quarterback, though, and keep some of that offense, I really think it could take a very big leap, especially if you bring in another wide receiver. Maybe you do draft someone like Marvin Harrison Jr. or someone else and bring a quarterback in free agency and they ball out together. That's something that could happen, but really it's all going to come together here in the next couple of weeks, I think, what this team will look like, and it's going to start with that big domino falling of Russell Wilson.
Is going to be a big chapter in Broncos history. When we got Russ, that was a huge chapter. It was a big turning point, and then it turned into the blame game, Well, here we go again. This is going to be a big chapter. Decisions that are made in this draft in the coming weeks about Wilson, that's going to shape the future of this team. A lot to think about, so feel free to chime in with your comments on what you think the Broncos need to do. And just kind of elaborate on what Caleb mentioned, that cap space. $13 million increase for all teams. Really, as Peyton has described it, flexibility. Gives them a little more flexibility. A lot of the analysts saying, okay, it makes it even easier to part ways with Wilson right now. I think we should have that decision, I'm thinking, Tuesday or Wednesday. Coach Peyton said within the next 2 weeks. He meets with ownership next week. Of course, follow us for when that news breaks on whether they announce they're keeping him or, more likely, they're releasing him. Any last thoughts before we go, Caleb?
It's going to be a crazy offseason. Here we are again. It seems like we go back and forth. One offseason, it's finding the quarterback. The next offseason, it's finding the coach. Luckily, it seems like we're stuck with the coach for a couple of years, whether that's good or bad. It seems like it's for the good. Sean Payton has definitely turned this team around from last year. Figuring out the quarterback position is going to take a lot. If I was in his shoes, I'd just load up on darts and throw them. Take someone in free agency, trade for a veteran quarterback who's probably just on his way out. I like Mac Jones from New England for a cheap little draft pick just to bring in, see what he can do, sign a free agent, and then still draft someone. Figure out this quarterback spot so that it's done and figured out and we can move on and figure out the rest of the team around him.
And you had mentioned Cushenberry. My personal thoughts, again, I'm no expert. I think we're going to part ways with Cushenberry because, to my knowledge, we up his contract. He's going to be the highest paid center in the league. We got a couple of backups that I think the Broncos are comfortable with, but only time will tell. It's exciting to talk about, fun to talk about, and then to actually see it play out. A lot of pressure right now on this new ownership group after what happened with Wilson, this upcoming draft, a new head coach that has a history. The expectations, again, are high for this team. But Caleb, thank you so much for the time. Again, if you guys are watching this live, throw in your comments right now, last second, or on a replay. We might bring them up when we're doing another one of these chats before the draft. A lot is going to change in the next couple of weeks. Hoping to have that announcement, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday. But Caleb, thank you so much. I'm going to leave everybody watching right now with these questions. What's next for Wilson? Broncos have the 12th pick in the draft. What do you think they're going to do? Most important position after QB. Leave your comments on Facebook right now. We're going to post this replay here in the next few minutes. And either way, go Broncos.